Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, November 23rd, and this is the Community Coalition Forum, one of our Monday meetings, and this session is one of our business sessions that we normally do the fourth Monday of each month. The topic this week is business law, and today we're going to be talking about legal structure, starting a business, buying a business, managing a business, and some partnerships for business income during this COVID time. Proud to introduce Mr. Thomas Ogar, who will be speaking to us this evening. Attorney Ogar, could you please give us a little bit about your background? And, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come in and share a little bit of information with the group. So how's everyone doing?
Fine, thank you.
Well, as you correctly stated, my name is Thomas Ogar. I am based here in Hartford, Connecticut. I have a practice both here in Connecticut and Washington, D.C. My background comes out of a business environment. I have a degree in business from Hartford University in Long Island. My two law degrees come from one from the UK, University of Glasgow in Scotland, and another law degree here from Columbia University in New York City. Been practicing law for close to 19 years, based in the same location downtown in Hartford. Primarily, I've been involved in civil litigation matters. Large part of my practice involves forming corporations, advising corporations, and showing them the way to gain resources to manage their business. And this is what I did largely in Washington. In Washington, I was able to, work with companies to secure, or private entities rather, from a governmental standpoint, to secure income to address issues like substance abuse in the community, particularly pregnant women and children. I was part of an organization that worked so hard to bring family drug courts to Washington, D.C., and I was able to secure $2 million to share with community-based programs so they can develop appropriate programs to take care of women who were suffering from substance abuse issues. And I'm into politics as well. In 2012, I ran for the mayor of the town of East Hartford. Gracefully, I lost by 1,000 votes. So maybe someday I will still travel that road. So briefly, that's who I am.
Thank you for that introduction. You've got a varied background, a very, broad, diverse background, and so that will be for a good conversation. So part of the Community Coalition, one of the things we're trying to do in this business series is to provide education and information to small business owners. So could you just tell us from your perspective, a legal perspective, if someone is starting a business, what are some of the things they should consider?
We have a very good question. One of the things that I would say is that look for resources, where the money is coming from. Forming a company is not difficult. I'll just go through a few, the legal structure of companies, so we get a clear, sort of broad view of it. Then I'll focus on limited liability companies, which everyone knows are called LLC. In the state of Connecticut, for instance, anyone who wants to form a company can consider, can consider 3 or 4, four companies really to think about. One is called general corporation. The second one is called closed corporation. The third is S corporation, and the fourth is limited liability. And I'll just share with you briefly what each means, and then would focus on limited liability companies. General corporations mostly is commonly used by large bodies. Uh, a good example would be IBM, for instance, or Intel Corporation, or the Hartford Hospital Corporation. That large body could simply get together and form a large company, and it would have stockholders where you buy stocks. That's one way for them to raise money. Your liability in that area is sometimes just limited to your contribution, buying those shares. You don't have to do more than that. And the other one is closed corporation, which is similar to general corporation. But this, the number of people that can incorporate this, numbers run sometimes from 30 to about 50. Not many people. Sometimes family members and friends can get together and form S corporation. And the third one would be S corporation. S corporation is simply the creature of the tax system. You know, individuals will get together and apply to IRS to get the tax corporation. And that's the benefit there is limiting tax liability, really. What you sit with CPA to help you structure the business, and you don't have to pay too much. You capitalize your capital that you invest in the business. You don't want to lose all that to taxes, or your income losing to taxes. And the third and final one is limited liability company. This is the one that most people, when they come to me after I share with them all the things they need to consider, I would say consider limited liability companies, because this gives you the advantage of a single member or two people getting together and forming this company. And the advantages are really self-evident. The LLC, it's a legal person. What does that mean? It means that they could hold properties, create properties, buy properties, sue if you're injured, and make, generate income enough to sustain the company, and therefore you can live off the income that comes out of an LLC if the business is doing well. And if nothing is done fraudulently, rather, the legal environment for such businesses will be good. I mean, you put yourself out there as an LLC, you do all the things the big corporations would do, but your liability will be limited. But if you engage in activities that are fraudulent or misrepresentation, then the courts might say, you know what, you formed this company to defraud people, you're doing illegal things, so therefore we'll open what they call corporate veil is open, and they go behind that to see what you're actually doing. So the legal environment, really, these are the things that anyone who wants to enter into a business will consider. What form of cooperation or company should I form? And then the second question that goes along with the first one rather quickly is that where are the resources coming from for me to open up a company or limited liability company?
Do you recommend that people open the companies on their own, or do you recommend that they always seek counsel? Because many people do it on their own.
Right. The quick way is, I know online people would, there are legal advertisements going on that says, send $50 in and you form an LLC. I discourage that because over the years of my practice, I've seen companies that are formed overnight without clear purpose or intention. And then when things happen, then they run to attorney to clean up what the mess, with the mess that had been created by this fast companies that are advertising this. And then if you decide to do it on your own, I'm not discouraging that, but please get legal advice. And whatever I share with you today here should not be considered legal advice, because no one particular situation addresses all types of issues. So I would say, because I have numerous examples that I could give, but in the interest of time, I'll just share one very quickly with you, where an individual wanted to incorporate a business, quickly ran downtown, got all the papers, but she didn't know that a stock company is different from a non-stock company. And a non-for-profit company is different from for-profit company. So he checked all the wrong boxes. And then when the state started to come after him and said, well, you've done this, you've not paid your taxes. And I looked at the whole structure, it was a mess. So to avoid that headache, sleepless nights, I would say, just return an attorney to have it done for you. And then it would also advise you, if you intend to grow in the future, or if you have a partner, what is the relationship between you and your partner vis-a-vis the company? And also, what are the legal things you're supposed to do and not do? So most of our folks are not aware of this and will do things that will come back later on to haunt them. So I would recommend legal counsel.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay.
Can you talk to us a little bit about buying a business or a franchise versus, what are the things to consider if you are considering purchasing an existing business or a
Yes,
franchise?
well, wonderful. I was anticipating that question. I'm glad. It's in this form, you mentioned it. Today, the climate is ripe for what I'll call mergers. If you have a small business, say a cleaning business, for instance, and you have 2 or 3 employees, I say, hey, listen, I've been doing this for years, but I need to uh, I need to get my resources together to purchase another large cleaning business because now, since I've been doing this for years, I know companies that are willing to give me a contract to clean large venues like I don't know what the big churches, town halls, for all sorts of activities. You will then say, you know what, you talk to the other company. First, you see what their resources are, expenses, and capital. Capital, what I'm looking for here is when they report on their profit and loss statement, they say, well, we've lost we lost $10,000 the first quarter. The second quarter, we made 12,000. Well, if you don't get an accountant to appraise that income and the expenses, you simply offer the company maybe 200,000 to buy them out. In the first few years, you might struggle. But in this current climate, sometimes it's better for you to buy to merge. You buy or you merge. You approach your company, says, I want to merge with you. And they say, oh, no, there's not much business, but you have creative ideas to generate business. You say, okay, since you're not doing well, I'll buy you outright. So Corona, the way I see Corona, people are suffering economically in all ways, but it's also an opportunity, time for you to say, let me get creative. And you would first get the liability issues addressed up front before you decide to buy or merge. So again, this climate, in my view, is right for both buying and merging. Not too long ago, I worked with a couple who bought a restaurant outright in the West Hartford area. The restaurant was not doing well. The arrangement in terms of whether we're getting their customers from was not very clear, but the people who bought this company out knew exactly where that clients were going to be coming from. They decided to do home delivery. You give them a menu, they tell you, give us a menu, they create the meals, and they deliver it. So that's an opportunity this client of mine saw and decided to jump right into it. So yes, I encourage anyone because there's some degree of risks that you take when you form a company and you decide to do business. If you do not engage in any risk, you will not gain anything. But what I mean by risks, then it ought to be a reasonable risk that makes sense. not when you hear someone's making $1 million and you say, you know what, if I go into that company, I'm going to make 10 million. So therefore, I'm going to buy that company out. You buy, you might lose. And franchise, this one, you have to be very careful. Um, when people think about purchasing a franchise, they give them a big booklet, and in that booklet it says they will say how much they make in a year, what the prospective individual needs to invest, and usually the amount up front is not astronomical. They will come up with something like 200,000, and they will say, "Oh well, you have a mortgage, right? You have a home, right? You can take out loan to buy this, and then we will teach you everything to make money." And the one I had recently is a new hamburger company that's coming up. They're based in the West Coast, so they're coming east. And the proposition that they offered my client was that within a short period of time, within 6 months, they will be making maybe $600,000 or $700,000. But the numbers sound too good to be true. So what I asked my client to do is, I asked him to fly to Los Angeles. This company is based in Los Angeles. To go in, just sit there and watch the number of people coming in and out, and then talk to the owner of that franchise, see what the issues are. Yeah, you could, after you do after doing your homework, you could say, well, you know, I want to purchase this. You go ahead and purchase it. So I do recommend that seldomly, but without enough information, if you're not business astute, you don't know the market, I would be hesitant to say go and get franchise, because there's a lot of work involved in that compared to merging with a company or perhaps purchasing someone's assets.
Mhm. Okay, so you're telling people to do their due diligence. Do you think that most people who start a business actually have a business plan? Is
No,
it?
right? No, when they come to me, they would say, I want to form a company to do delivery. But no, they do not, because first I asked them, I said, what city do you live in? This I might address again later on, because some cities in Hartford, in Connecticut, are not business friendly. What do I mean by that? Simply going to collect information from town hall, you have to see 3 or 4 people. Why? Why couldn't you just pick up a phone and call City Hall, wherever you are, and says, I want to form a business, and then someone says, you know what, we are here to help you. Usually people have no knowledge of this. They come in, they have some money, and they said, I want to invest, but have no plan. In the first year, what do you plan to do? Second year, what do you plan to do? Have you even incorporated? If you have, what type of legal structure do you have to do this? And if you decide to go and borrow money from a bank, you don't have a business structure or plan, the banker would, in my view, would not take you seriously. It was, well, you want to make some money, you want to form a company, but all the rules of the company, you have no idea. They will not turn around and they will not tell you that, because it is not their function. Their function is to loan you money and to make money off whatever of course, appropriate legal, um, interest rates. So most of them are not prepared, but they have good intentions, but the preparation is woefully lacking.
Hmm. Okay.
Mm.
Hey, before you talked about when you were talking about the legal entity,
Yes.
you talked about partnerships. Can you talk about what to consider if you are going to have a partner?
Yes. Partnership in minority communities, because a lot of those communities lack access to resources. They might want to form a company again to deliver something, but don't have the resources to do so. Um, the recent case that I have, um, we have private companies delivering letters to the airport to other folks, but this individual who came to see me had a almost 12-year-old truck, and some of his trucks don't last 12 years. And I said, well, if anyone's going to give you a contract, they want a reliable truck, not the one that will break down on I-91 north or south, and you're calling everybody to come and help you. In the meantime, the client is sitting in Worcester, I'm sorry, in Windsor waiting for the package, and it hasn't arrived. So what I share with this individual is that I said a partnership will be a good way to go because you have the know-how, but you don't have the resources. Approach one or two folks in the community that you trust, someone you can work with. Um, they provide you the funds to purchase a truck, a viable truck, a good truck, and then you work out the arrangement how to split the income. Of course, your knowledge base and contribution will not be the same. So partnership, once you have two people that agree, don't have to agree on everything, agree on capital, um, business idea, the development of it, and how they plan to implement the business. Yeah, it could go, and it could be very informal. A handshake would do in some states, but I recommend that they reduce this to writing so that there's no dispute as to um, what was said or not said. And again, given COVID, where resources are scarce and people want to help and do things, a partnership might be a good consideration given what we have now. Again, it would be. Uh, I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah.
So you have to find someone again who complement you, and then running of a business is much easier than companies. So again, this environment calls for people who are creative, who wants to do something like this, could really do it.
Okay. So a partnership can be very informal, is kind of what you're saying.
Yes, yes, but to protect yourself and your assets and all that, I would always suggest you reduce it to writing.
Any special thing that should be in that agreement?
Uh, yeah, well, what you plan to do, who you are, and how you plan to what you intend to do, and how you plan to manage a company. Right. For instance, to give you an example, I have one right now where the individuals like a taxi sort of business where you go to the airport, pick up all these people, but it wasn't a formal agreement; it was just a handshake. So within this handshake, over a period of time, they were able to make a huge amount of money. Uh, but when dispute, if any dispute were to arise, then the courts would always look for, did you reduce this to writing? What is a writing? And if you say, if you don't have one, then you explain to the court what you actually did. And in this case, it's two friends just shook hands because we're friends. It's, oh, don't worry about writing anything down. No, no, it's between you and I. But once the resources began to flow in, financial resources, then one partner says, you know what, I need to get more. I'm not going to do 20, 80, or 50, whatever the split was. But that could produce some problem. If not, a handshake sometimes would do.
Okay. Um, one of the things that we've been asked about is being designated a minority business or female business. Can you talk about how how you go about get that designation and the benefits of it?
Well, quite frankly, that area I have not worked much in that area.
Okay.
Um, but what I do know is that any designation that says minority businesses, what I'm finding is people coming back and saying, we're not getting anything, we're not getting money, we don't know. After we complete a course, we don't know what the resources are coming from because we're not moving forward. But I think some of this affirmative action issues that have been created by cities or state was to give fair share of whatever resources are coming in to the minority community. So I cannot speak to that directly because I've not dealt with that in any extensive way.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor up for questions in a minute. My last question is going to be, what should business owners always consider so that they are legally compliant with whatever legal requirements may need to be met?
Okay, first, make sure they have incorporated properly to have enough resources to protect them and guide their business. To get insurance, get adequate business insurance. And if you're a single member LLC or two people, the two of you should know what's going on with the company. So stay on top of communications from the city or services on the company that the company is being sued for whatever reason. Sometimes I've had cases where someone pulled a company's name from the registry, I don't know how they got it, and filed a lawsuit against the company. So you want to be protected all around. So from time to time, and also you have to retain a CPA. I know most folks in the minority community say, oh, I have a tax person, I know this person does my tax, she does my tax. I'm not saying they're not qualified, I'm not saying that. But what I am suggesting, however, is that a CPA who's certified by the state of Connecticut to do taxes, some cases, they strictly to do business taxes alone, nothing else, can guide you so you don't fall into trouble with the federal government or the city or the state. Because now remember, when you form that LLC, the federal government gives you a tax ID for the business. So be mindful of that. And if you do not have adequate insurance, please talk to your insurance agent and make sure you obtain appropriate insurance.
Gotcha. So I'm opening up questions to the floor. Any questions from anyone? Excuse me? No questions from anyone?
Yeah, I just came in, so I didn't hear the conversation. So,
Okay, one question came in. What guidance would you give to someone regarding, just lost it, regarding a bad venture? And Errol, we were just talking about, if someone starting up a business, the legal things to consider. So that's what we've been talking about. So the question is, what guidance would you give to someone regarding if they are in a bad venture, they're in a bad business relationship?
Okay. If is this a partnership or an LLC, or what kind of entity is this? Do you know that?
Let me see, any of the above. I guess if you're in business with someone and it's just not working out.
Okay. All right. You take legal steps to dissolve the business. For example, if it's an LLC or partnership, for instance, would be a clear example. You and your partners are just not seeing eye to eye on anything. He claims he's the one doing all the work. You just not doing anything, but you expect to be paid, and he doesn't want it anymore. Yes, you could dissolve a partnership, but the dissolution of partnership might leave you with some liabilities. And there are bills that have not been paid, you have to pay those bills. The taxes that have not been paid, you pay those bills. The example I gave a while ago about taxi group, I mean, just two individuals that formed a taxi company. When there was enough money in that account, one individual went in there and took out all the money. And then he ran. So when my client came to see me, I said, well, you know what? He could run, but he cannot hide. The idea was he not claim that he was the one responsible for everything and that his partner now was his employee. Okay, well, if you own the company, why would you close the account and take all the money out? So when there's dispute, you turn to the law and you have it, dissolved amicably because it's a provision of law for dissolution of companies.
Um, Speaking of money and taking all the money and running,
Mm.
is it do do banks? I know that a lot of times there are supposed to be two signatures on an account
Right,
for a business, but
right.
I think banks will cash a check if there's just one signature. I don't think they.
Yeah, no, unless you give specific instructions, you say, like non-for-profit companies that are formed in a church situation, for instance, a pastor might say, you know what, if I'm not here, I want assistant pastor to sign a check anywhere from $0 to $500. Anything beyond that, he or she should not be allowed. But then I had a pastor who would go shopping and would not say, okay, well, I'm the president of the church, so I don't believe in all that. But yeah, if you stipulate that and the bank agrees to honor it, then that's fine. If not, in the constitution that you have running your business, you could stipulate that very clearly, the amount, and then if you give that to the bank, and then if they don't honor it, and then something happens, yeah, they might be answerable for that. But if not, most banks don't even check. But if it's a partnership situation, any other partners can take out a large sums of money or can take out a whole account. But for a company, you as the proprietor needs to set a limit, make arrangements with your bank. Right.
Okay. Um, thank you. Here's a
Well,
question. What's the difference between an S and a C corporation?
A C is close cooperation. It's similar to general cooperation. Um, Members usually range from anywhere from 40 to 60 or less. Um, if you know, if you have a stock in a C corporation, if you want to sell that, you offer it to members before you offer it to people outside. And it's a close members, people maybe um, then you could be exempt from personal liability. And then S corporation. S corporation is really a tax creature by IRS. It's something you apply for to get tax benefits, but the tax benefit itself, you need to talk to a CPA how you will benefit if you form an S corporation instead of a C corporation, because a C corporation is almost like a general corporation. It's just the difference between the general corporation and C corporation would be just a number of people. But in my experience here in Hartford, in Connecticut, most minority businesses are up and coming. Um, Usually, they don't come in and say, you know what, let's do this, let's do that. The resources they have to form a company, to generate income, or perhaps to create a business, it's not, it's limited. The income's limited, and they again, it's like mom and pop wants a small grocery store, and they want to make sure they have supplies coming in, because if you're a company, businesses in the community will respect you. But if you say I'm a sole proprietor on this, they would, the way you're treated is a little bit different. So again, when I can answer this in reference to specific situations. So if you have an individual who's considering this, I would say, call my office or call me and come in so that we could discuss it further.
Okay. Here's one. What suggestion would you give to business owners that don't know the regulatory rules that govern their industry?
Right. The, the thing with that calls for you doing homework. That's preparation. That's what I call preparation. You want to go into restaurant industry. Let me give you an example. You want to make chicken patty or beef patty. It's very simple, right? You go and get your chicken, get the dough, whatever you mix in the seasoning. You make that. You sell it to the public. But that industry, you're selling food. So the city of Hartford Department of Health is involved. The state is involved. The federal government is involved. So most folks that come to see me, they will say, oh, the city will give me a permit. They have a limited view of what that whole industry does. Because the machine you're using, if it injures someone, OSHA could come in from the federal government. Then the city could come in. They could come in simultaneously. I mean, the city and the feds or the state. So if you know that selling beef patty, you have to keep the environment very clean. You have to make sure those machines are cleaned well and that you refrigerate the meat that you don't use at a certain temperature. So you could have USDA, the food people come in and say, well, I think the batch of beef that you got last year or this month is no good. Tell us what have you done with the beef? If you say, well, I blended the beef and I didn't know, maybe you didn't know, but they could say, all that batch of food, don't sell them. So that's someone who knows about not just making beef patty, but knows what the state requires, what the city requires, and what the federal government requires. So it would take it would take the education, you doing the homework, and that's what I call preparation. Because regulations could be very tough, and when it comes to food, I've not seen any city that is lax, but the ethnic foods, now that's a different rule. Ethnic foods that enter through our borders. Representing a client who ordered whole sort of stockfish from overseas, and over there they add salt to it. Once it was brought here, it was stinking. So the custom department got involved, then USDA got involved, and it came in 7,000 worth of goods were thrown away. So if this client had known that you just don't go buy this stuff overseas and ship it here, because the regulatory environment would ask a lot of questions. And then the other one is you bring in fish that is decayed, they would destroy that at the airport. Sometimes don't let it in. So if you don't know, you ask if it's an area you haven't gone into before, or people who've been doing this, you ask them.
Okay. When we started off, you started with start with where the money is coming from.
Yes.
So were you saying that to mean that if you are going to go into a business, you have to know not only how you're going to, where you're going to get your funding from to start your business, but how is your business going to make money? Is that what you meant by that?
Both. Both, and I can elaborate a little bit now. Let's start with where is the money coming from? Now, some folks have a talent to run a hair shop, beauty salon, all that, but they don't have the capital to get started. To rent a place in Hartford, the landlord might say, I want 4,000 from you a month. Or I want 3,000, I want 1,000. But they have the skills. Where will they get that to pay, buy all the equipment before they can get started? So that would hinder someone, even if you incorporate, you're not going to be able to do anything because they don't have the money to get started. So in that area, what I'm suggesting is that the areas where you look for money is you first start from your home, where you are. That's where you start looking. You own a home, can you take out a home equity from that? If not, can you pull friends and relatives together to get the capital to get started? And when I say pull money together, I'm talking about someone who's in a financial position to help. I'm not asking for you to approach someone perhaps who's struggling to make ends meet and say, you know what, can you give me 10,000? That's going to be difficult and further frustrate your effort to grow to start a business. And then you go, most cities here in Connecticut, I've not seen this much, but this is something that can be encouraged. You're wanting to start a small business, minority business, any kind of business, first approach the city hall. Ask for seed money. Will the city, if it takes you 50,000 to open up a hair beauty shop, will the city consider giving you some seed money? Maybe 10,000, maybe 30,000, maybe 40,000 for you to get the equipment and let's get started. So most places would say, oh, be in business for 1 year and then come in and talk to us. That's no help. Because if I were to have these funds up front, and then also the things that I need to purchase, it might not be enough. So when you go to City Hall, be very specific as to what you're looking for, be incorporated, be prepared, have a business plan. So this is what I want to do. And if they don't have the funding or resources for you, turn around and ask, where else can I go to get these resources? People who talk to me about small business administration is wonderful, but a lot of us, when we navigate through all that process, is so challenging before you can get started. If you graduate and you do well, hopefully you can get resources. So property is where a large part of your resources might come from. Home equity loans. Some people use credit card. I was working with an individual who took out 150,000 home and credit card to set up a bakery. So that's where you will go. And then banks make it, they want collateral, obviously, from you. But in going to a bank, you have to be prepared. We talked about business plan this evening. We talked about a whole lot of other things that you need to do to look presentable. So when you go before a bank manager and you're asking for $10, be sure you can make a case for $10. So when they give you this money, it's putting people's money at risk, but not to lose them, because that's not what they're in business to do. And this is where partners need to come together too. You can form a partner to generate income to do business. Where you get 2 or 3 people together, or 2 people together, and say, you know what, we're going to watch car all this weekend. Whatever process we get from this, we'll start to buy or rent a place to collect cans from the city to do X, Y, and Z. And it doesn't have to be something that you need to think really seriously about, because all you're doing here is looking for money, and creative ways do help. And the other one I would talk about, people have life insurance, they have credit cards, but life insurance, I do wills also, but life insurance, some life insurance policies, you have access to proceeds now. It just means that if, God forbid, you pass, the full amount might not be available to you. So assuming you have $100,000, you can go and take the whole life, see what's in the policy, work with the insurance company. They loan you X amount of dollars that you're supposed to pay back, use it to generate your business. And then the other one of non-traditional ways is that a lot of us here go to churches. We do have a place of worship, and pastors have existing relationship with banks because that's where they, you know, they go deposit to do all the church business. What if you or a group of you approach your pastor and say, you know what, pastor, I want to set up a cleaning agency, but we don't have the money to buy a cleaning machine. Can you talk to the bank on our behalf? I bet if a pastor talk to maybe TD Bank manager, sometimes you do get resources out of someone recommending you to an institution that has the resources to lend. And the last one is at the end of the year, most philanthropists, most organizations that help are willing to close their books on some of their tax situation, trying to either give up money. So between September and December, you can approach companies that are willing to help. And surprisingly, some of them would help, because if you create a business in the community to serve them, they might even benefit from that in the long run. So those are not traditional ways, places you go for resources, but people have used that and it has helped them.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. Are there additional questions? We've only got a couple minutes left. Well, I don't see any questions coming in. So I do want to thank you today. Got quite a lot of information. We've talked about, different legal entities that someone can consider when starting a business. We talked about the money. Start with where is the money coming from? How are you going to support this business? We've talked about resources. We've talked about how to protect and guard the business. We've talked about purchasing a business, whether it's a merger or buying a business. And I like the idea of not all cities are business friendly, so do your research and have a business plan, because that will be needed if you need any type of financing going forward. And it's also like your roadmap as to what you're doing. So I think we've gotten quite a bit of information today, and we thank you, Attorney Ogar, for this. And, we hope to keep in touch with you.
I thank you so much for having me. And again, any one area that I've touched on that is not sufficient, individuals want to call and ask for more information, I'll be delighted to help. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.